Welcome, everyone, to Higher Density Living.
Welcome to Higher
with
Density
Alexander
Living.
McCaig and Jason Rigby.
Yeah.
You figure out who's who.
Yeah.
So I wonder if some people would think I'm an Alex and some people would think that you're a Jason.
Like if they'd never looked at this, they'd be like, who's
Yeah,
the
because
Jason?
Alexander's kind of like an older name. McCaig, it's
Yeah.
probably like, yeah.
Who's the Jason?
Yeah, we
Rigby?
can switch identities. That's cool.
Yeah, we
what was
could
that
matter.
show where it was like a funny movie where their bodies, it had Jason Bateman in it. Remember that? People will know, and they switched identities. So it's like they went to like and one of them was having a baby.
Oh,
Like the wife was
know.
having or the girlfriend was having a
I always
baby.
get the sensation that people
It was
listen to
super
this
funny.
and they're like yelling at us.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, you fucking idiots. How do you not know this?
Put it in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure you put the fucking idiots part. That's the part of. So I want to get into something, and I think it's really important that we understand. And I want to take this from a different approach. Instead of there's tons of podcasts and tons of books on going super deep into this.
Okay.
With the occultism and the Nazis, because we're kind of on this little Nazi roll here.
Well, they
And so is Kanye apparently, and
were-
everyone else.
They were
but-
unfortunately such a massive influence on human history.
Yes. But how they got there, how did occultism, and I'm going to say this in general, religion, theocracies, how all of a sudden you come into play as a political leader, you write a book, then all of a sudden you say, no, I'm the chancellor, no, I'm the supreme leader. You know, it's like a sandwich, like the supreme leader, supreme, you become a supreme leader. And then you're like, we're not going to do a Christian wedding anymore.
No.
We're going to do a Nazi wedding, and then it's going to be this way. We're going to, and then there's like, let's hate Jews. I don't understand that part. Never have. I mean, I know the whole, and we'll get into this with occultism, but there's this slippery slope that we have, and we see it in the United States. And I mean, you can go to the Middle East, all these countries. I'm not bashing religion per se. I'm just telling people, whenever you start to see a leader, a governmental leader, and they start to blend religion, I remember George Bush, and he's like, yeah, I love Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'm all about Jesus.
Right.
And he's like, get me elected. I need those, far right
I thought we were supposed to have separation of church and the state.
And the Bushes were like, anything, I mean, just pure evil.
Yeah.
CIA killed JFK. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Everything that Bush, and the Bush dad, the grandfather was running the banks for the Nazis and everything else. So, just behind the Dick Cheney, Darth Vader, I mean, the list just goes on and on how, and I could talk about some of the, Obama killed more people than anybody with his drone strike. So I can hit both sides. Because we're basically like spiritual anarchists. I want to make a shirt about that. I'm a spiritual anarchist.
That's cool.
But, and this is what I want to talk to you about. When we look at Nazi occultism, or we look at any type of religion or occultism that begins to permeate a government.
That's dangerous. So how far do we want to drop back here?
It's proven.
Let's think about the roots of England and the crown. You had these feudal societies where the king was this person who was very close to God and wrote the laws for the area under his decision for what was his benefit. And then he would have a couple people like knights and large estate owners that would then, in this feudal society, collect taxes from these people who were doing the work that essentially fed the king.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing all the work, sending food to the castle, and then the castle comes and taxes me to the hilt, and I really have no choice in it. I don't even have enough money to buy armor to defend myself against the king and his military.
Yes.
And then he's got these little satraps, which are around everywhere, that beat me up and make sure I pay my bills. It's like a angry IRS agent in plate armor with a big sword, like obviously. And what's interesting about it is that the further away you were from this line of the king, the person that's power, the less educated you were.
Yes.
So you really had a massive disservice. But the king found power in the fact that he could blend the religion, which the people who had no money, these were the foundations of their lives. This is what they could sink their teeth into because that was something that was free. Mm-hmm. It was religious ideology. It was a very powerful tool. Now, if the king was the one that was disseminating the information or was like put in place by this godhead, to do the ruling. Oh my gosh! Well, then you have full control over the entire state of which you own, and you have control over the minds, the ideologies of the people, because these are the things that they're grasping on you into their limited education.
Yes,
and you're the person that's bestowed this holy power to rule. Now, if you look at that, that lasted for a very, very, very extremely long time.
Right.
Now, the earlier founding fathers of the United States realized that you want this separation of church and state. Because if you can control ideologies, religious ideologies, and you can put that into the power of the governments and the ruling, then you go back to something which you have, which is the crown, which is the exact same thing that they were fighting against, during our Revolutionary Wars.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a reason why we were declaring independence from a system which was used to hold people down, right?
Right, the state church, yeah.
And so when that has been built up, what we find is that over time, this power of religious ideology starts to creep back in because it's such a deeply culturally entrenched topic. And then you get these people that come into these positions of power, senators or people that are presidents or running certain aspects of government. Well, they're going to bring in their own personal life. And if they have foundations, religious foundations, and they bring those communities with it, they have specific power, right? Because now we're writing laws. We're doing things to the benefit of our religion, our beliefs, okay? Our systems of untruth that we really don't understand, and now we want to warp that into our laws, which are now governing our people. So the mistakes that you saw in the early, feudal systems, right, of Europe, and the crown and these, godheads appointing the kings, and you can even go further back to ancient Egypt, but the thing that we tried to remove ourselves from crept back in. Now, move yourself over into Europe. There was much strength in what was called the Holy Roman Empire. And its roots continue to last all the way up into this new Reich that was happening with, the growth of, this National Socialist Party, which was in Germany itself, which are the Nazis. But with religion, and we've seen this, religion causes people to do many crazy things, even to go on crusades, right? To murder people in the name of God, whatever it might be. Much bloodshed has happened in the name of God or Godheads. So if you're an intelligent leader, and it doesn't mean you have to be a good person if you're intelligent, but if you're intelligent, you realize that there can be great manipulation by bringing in heavily polarizing ideologies, religious ideologies, 100%. Into your idea of, I need to gain power. So how do I get the will of the people to join me? Well, first of all, I need to find someone to blame. Mm-hmm. So the Nazis had a great person to blame for their shortcomings, right? And it's like, let's blame Jewish people, because a vast majority of the Jews were highly educated, and they had a very rich history in Europe. And then beyond that, because they were educated, they had positions in these great enterprises that fed a majority of the military-industrial complex that Germany at the time, or the Nazi party, needed to gain that control. Mm-hmm. If you have control of private industry, you're going to be fine. You can do whatever you want.
Yes.
So if we can get the vast majority of people in Germany who are not Jews to dislike a specific group, and then take all these other religious ideologies to pump up this new form of government with a very dark, very polarizing religious base, and have someone that we can be polarized against, becomes a very powerful narrative, and it becomes dangerous. And that's where you start to see the growth of this National Socialist Party, this massive amount of bigotry, and this quick rise to power that they found within their own country. Everything erodes, and then you can start to decide what these rules are. You can start to say, oh, we're no longer having, these types of religious ceremonies. We're going to have one that's, Nazi dictated, with our own 100%. Religious foundations.
Yes.
But they're still pretty good because, we're taking our ideas from, really old religious themes, but we're going to be very specific about it. And we're going to pick and choose the ones that are most beneficial to us, as our new form of government.
Yeah, and I think it becomes worse because what you see, it played out over and over again. Remember the Game of Thrones where the guy that, was supposedly super humility, wore the sackcloth and ash and was dirty. And
that's correct.
And he came in, and then Cersei was like, I can use these people because he has the ear of the people. He has fear in place. So I'm going to use religion. She was religious.
The fear of God.
And then that guy ended up, what usually happens too, can happen, and we've seen it with popes and everything else in the Catholic Church, that person began to take over and then imprisoned her and others in the family, so you can see this happening over and over and over again. And especially when you look at those secret societies that were happening, basically it was like a Mason, like the Freemason type thing, rooted in, a pagan, northern pagan culture, ideology, paganism, and then you add the occultism in there in the sense of, and we're using the word occult in a loose way.
Yeah.
Ritualistic, now you can take something that you've created, and I think it was Hitler's right-hand man, I always say his name wrong, Heimlicher or whatever. I say Heimlicher.
No.
Heimler, whatever it was.
Yeah.
We all know, but he was highly into the occult and into the dual society and all that. He comes in there.
Himmler.
Yeah. He comes in there and, is in the ear of Hitler all the time, pushing this over and over and over again, this narrative, because he knows if he can get people will raise their hand, in the Nazi symbol or whatever. They were raising their hand, much like you raise your hand in church, and this is going to be offensive to some of you, much like religion is so manipulative. You can go to a church and watch people, like whatever type of church it is, whether it's you have to like put a little mat on the ground and pray a certain direction.
Sure.
Or you have to, you're like, swaying back and forth and Jesus, the Holy Spirit's filling you.
What about in the United States?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. In the United States, we have this whole Jesus.
We have a choral song that we sing, staring at a flag.
Yes.
You're required to stand up.
Yes.
You're required to take your hat off in respect to a thing which isn't even alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to also set up a thing where you're going to die for it.
Yes, 100%.
Dying for what? Back during the revolution, people weren't saluting a flag.
No.
It was the idea of building those freedoms, removing ourselves from those systems to truly find free will and independence. There was a time when people were actually kings of their own estate here, right?
Well, I mean, that's what some of the Civil War was about, was states' rights,
which was
like in the sense of like, I remember I watched the whole thing on General Lee, from the South, and slavery was horrific, absolutely horrible. It's still going on today. This Apple phone that I have was built off slavery.
Yeah.
So we're all bullshit for thinking, we own things that have slavery. If you haven't seen it, then go look at cobalt and lithium mines in the Congo and watch slave. They call them artesian mines,
Oh yeah, of course they are.
But there's
like my Fiji
women.
water.
There's women with flip flops on and a little tiny old hammer with a kid attached to their back,
working away
for 15 hours a day, chipping away, so that we can have this. So slavery is alive and well, probably more than it's ever been because of the amount of population.
Mm-hmm.
So slavery aside, the whole idea of the Civil War was, I don't want a federal government, like General Lee was like, and Stonewall Jackson, these others were like, I'm from Virginia. It's Virginia is what, I'm a Virginian. I'm not
we as a
united.
state will decide.
Yeah. We as a state and the people in the state. So it's more like this United States of America, like this. Each state kind of had its own sovereign, but we were kind of together in this loose format, which that's decentralization, but not what does it turn to? And religion has helped this.
Right. Religion has been the thing that
patriotism.
It glues, it creates centralization, it creates patriotism. It's the thing that puts false ideologies in place that gets people to do things they otherwise shouldn't be doing. But think about in the context of laws today on abortion. How many functions of religious ideology are pulled into place on, whether or not you have, choice?
All of them.
And it's the same thing we were fighting against. But the fact is that people are not recognizing the historical dangers of this. And there's so many points in history, whether it be the Nazis, whether it be the crown in England, whether it be the priests in Egypt, right? Ancient Egypt,
right.
Or
Muhammad, whatever, whoever.
When you repeat this process, you find the same patterns of demise. You find the same troubles. You reduce the sovereignty that you have
100%.
And you give it to an ideology that has no foundational creational truths to it.
The creational truth is this, and what we can end in this after you talk about this, but your higher self, and we had 2 or 3 episodes on this, and it's so beautiful. Your higher self is your, if you want to call it, your God. There is no. You want unconditional love? That is your higher self loving you. It is showing you creational law. I mean, it's not really millions of years ahead of you, but let's for our distortion, the way we look at time and space and all that.
Yeah.
If Jason, my millions of years evolved Jason, there's nothing I would want to do more. Jason, there's nothing I would want to do more than to show love towards all the meat suits that I'm going to be in. And then without going against their free will, guide them.
Yeah.
And show them.
Well, let's look at something obvious. And you've made a fantastic point, and I think you just brushed over it. You exist, right?
Yes.
Something is energizing your body, allowing you to exist.
Yes.
What greater love than the allowance for you to exist and make choices and to evolve? What greater creational truth? Yeah. There isn't, because it's just the existence of who you are right here.
Yes.
There's something allowing these cells to be powered.
And somebody wants to take that.
And somebody wants to take that control. They want to take that power. They want to remove this positive evolutive growth, and they want to take negative belief-driven ideologies.
Yes.
With these like twisted occult roots or deep religious roots, and then just put that into the structure of your life, put it into the technology, put it into the news and everything that you are ingesting. To warp you, to pull you away from the thing that actually allows you to exist.
Yeah, there is no government that's attached to religion that it always turns out bad.
It always has been.
Always has been. From, like you said, from the Egyptians where they declared themselves gods, all the way down to now with us declaring, we're this or we're that. I mean, you got the left who's got a woke religion, and then you have the right who's attaching on to this old archaic patriotic Christian, symbolism of what America used to be, which is so silly. All of it is so silly when you begin to look at your higher self, when you begin to see the freedom that you have.
Really easy.
You have so much freedom. That's what I was sharing with somebody there. I said, how much is my higher self worth? Is $1 trillion a lot to my millions and millions of years evolved higher self?
It means nothing.
My money, means
money
nothing.
Was like a short creation technology.
So if I get worried about money, that's me in my distortion in this moment, and that's all ego. It's not higher self.
Complete ego.
It's all ego.
It was a technology that was designed how long ago? Not even that long ago.
And that is not real.
No, it's completely unreal. But it's the basis and foundation. It is a religion in and of itself.
Yes.
Stop putting your power into things that are religions that are built on beliefs. If you want to look at the historical context of what we're talking about, do 30 minutes of research, grab a pen and paper, and write down the events. I want you to look at each of the greatest cultures that have come through, or the ones that have done many, many things, and see where the issues were. Look for government or a ruling power and a religious deity. You will see every single time, and then I want you to mark the amount of bloodshed. Look at those cycles. Look how that has pushed itself forward into where we are today. Recognize it. It's a simple recognition. It's not a difficult thing to do, but don't ignore it, okay? Because that will harm your own personal evolution. And just recognize what is allowing to you to exist is the most real, is the most subjective, is the most positive, evolutive thing you could ever focus on. And it's right here in front of you. It's the thing that allows you to live, walk, talk, breathe, and think.
Yes, and speaking of that, you text me this morning, we'll close on this, you text me this morning and said, be careful, there's black ice and snow, which there was when I got into Santa Fe from Albuquerque. Guess what I drove?
What?
A Mazda CX-5.
And who do you got to thank
for
issues? That? Quality Mazda NM, right?
Our sponsor.
QualityMazdaNM.com. If you are looking for a great all-wheel drive vehicle, safe, fantastic sound systems, very comfortable, like bucket racing seats, in an elevated sense, and an educational purchasing process. And if you want to buy it online from the Colorado, New Mexico, or Texas area, you can go to QualityMazdaNM.com. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us again today on episode 231 of Higher Density Living. And just recognize the great value in your life, which is the self and creation. Thank you.